The moment you allow someone to edit, everybody begins to edit. And you get very lost very quickly in your orders about who didn't want what.
Qual è il migliore smash burger di Milano? Non lo sappiamo e non sta a noi stabilirlo, ma oggi vi parliamo di Chuck George, che nel 2022 ha portato lo smash burger a Milano, con Chuck's. Originario del Rhode Island, è cresciuto in Virginia studiando scienze politiche, ma dopo sente la chiamata del food.
Nel 2020 si trasferisce in Italia per amore, ma purtroppo la storia non va come previsto e per restare a Milano decide di aprire la sua azienda. È così che nasce Chuck's, un format semplice e diretto, un unico panino, pochi ingredienti e soprattutto zero modifiche. Da Milano si espande a Londra, Parigi e Roma e da pochissimo ha aperto anche un bistrò a Via Vigna, portando in Italia la cucina italo-americana facendo delle scelte controcorrente e coraggiose.
Okay, let's start.
Sure, yeah.
Hi, Pat, nice to meet you.
Hi, pleasure.
Pleasure to have you on our podcast.
Thanks.
Let's start talking about your story.
Sure.
I know you were from Rhode Island and then raised in Virginia.
Yeah, born in Newport, raised in Virginia, went to school in Virginia. Like basically my whole life is Virginia. And then after college, I worked for the Defense Department, like doing something completely different, which was nice. It was like all the risk mitigation. And then I ended up going to New York, well, LA first, and then New York to get into hospitality.
You started from very different field that was
Yeah.
political science.
Yeah, I studied politics. I mean, I wouldn't say that that's like still out of the idea and like in the future. But yeah, I wanted to be something that was like directly involved with like community and people, because I never really feel like I'm in the food business. Like I'm really in the people business. And that's like such a core focus of the brand, the relationships, all the guest chefs that come, all of the collaborations. It's so centered around this idea that we're not really just selling a burger. We're like selling, I don't know, relationships and community.
And was there a specific moment in which you realized that food was your true calling, or just?
No, I mean, like again, I think I would like to say it was so romantic, but no. I mean, I think the guys that I began to work with in New York, Phil Windsor and Benjamin Towell, I think I was just so fascinated by the work that they were doing with like farm to table in New York. And so basically I just began my career with them, and then stayed with them until they sold the group and they exited. And I think Phil, now he's back in London with lots of amazing restaurants. And Ben is in Charleston, South Carolina, also doing lots of projects. So I just had a nice foundation from like which to build, to have an aesthetic, to have an opinion. That kind of allows me to form all these things that we now see. It's just restaurants ultimately.
Yeah, we know that New York is a competitive city also for food.
Sure.
What this kind of experience is?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. I think Milan is a little bit more simple, but because I think in New York you tend to have more voice in the work that you're doing. Whereas I find Milan to be the opposite. I mean, except for a few folks that I think are doing really great work. But I don't think there's so much authenticity or like original narrative like happening in Milan. So I think the premise of New York is that young people really have freedom to express themselves however they wish to cook and whatever they want to cook. And maybe it's more difficult today because rent is astronomical. But I don't think that exists in Milan, that level of freedom and experimentation, because I think it's culturally built in for fear of failure and non-acceptance. And I just think that's like ridiculous and pointless way of looking at especially food, because food is so yeah, it's like identity also. No, it's like creative, but it's also built around an identity. And whatever that identity is that you've created around like the food that you've eaten or that you've grown up with, like it should come out into the restaurant that you're opening. And I think sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does.
Dalla.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's mostly about learn from errors, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think.
Italy is not so common to the culture of Italy.
Yeah, I think the premise like is just being really naive because I still always admit that I still don't really know what I'm doing. I think you just have to go into it and lay, like you have to get your feet wet and see what people want to eat, but also like what you want to eat and be able to provide that in like a way that you can still like identify with for you personally, not by adjusting taste to like the local level, which is, I mean, come on, and there's no point to do that because it just completely, it kind of bastardizes the whole purpose of being a chef and cooking to begin with.
Yeah.
And what do you learn from New York experience that you used it now in your acting?
Efficiency.
Okay.
Sticking to a vision, empathy with your staff. I think that happened a lot more post my experience in New York, like after COVID, where I think employees, I think the conversation with employees changed a lot. But I certainly like learned something from just being on the sidelines during that period of applying empathy to employment and your team and really putting their needs first and foremost. I think that's a big point. I think just the premise of like, again, focusing on your creativity. I think allowing your narrative to sort of like just allowing yourself to put that out in the world without really any sort of judgment, because what does it matter anyway? 9 times out of 10, somebody else is going to like what you like. It's just the way the world works. So I think New York, like I said earlier, like there's so much freedom in being able to like experiment and just do things that you ultimately want to do. And I think New York is a good like testing ground for these kinds of things. But also London or Paris, I think you see it a lot in bigger cities.
Yeah. And then you moved to Italy during the pandemic.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
And you moved for personal reasons because you were engaged with the Italian girl.
Yeah, I was married to an Italian. We were married in Brooklyn, actually. And when COVID hit, we moved into our house in Tuscany because she was Italian, so luckily I could move to Italy. And then after, actually, it was quite the timing of opening Chuck's and the separation happened like within 30 days. The separation happened in February and we opened in March. So it was really not, there was no plan to open a burger shop at all. I just wanted an excuse to stay here. And nobody was doing anything like interesting in the burger scene. I mean, of course, you had the burgers of the world, which was okay. I ordered it a lot actually because there was like nothing else to get that was similar. But there's always something like missing. And so I felt like there's probably a place, even if you just have a tidy burger shop, which is what we started with. No, it's a 17-meter window on a sidewalk of a street that nobody walks on. Which has now become Sidewalk Kitchens. But I think just the reality of being able to do something that was pertinent and also to convince myself that I wanted to stay in Europe. I think like a burger shop was like the simplest thing, just from statistics, that the 2 most ordered things on delivery are burgers and pizza. Yeah. That's it, and we didn't even start delivery for almost a year. Because we just wanted to sort of have this conversation with the neighborhood. And then over time, we were able to start introducing more services and basically growing out that fluid kitchen.
You own chapter in Sidewalk Kitchens in Milan. What are the advantages of this kind of model for restaurants?
Sure, low capex. That's the key. And you don't spend so much to open in a place like Sidewalk. I think the determining factor is like, what does your projection look like after 3 years, And if you not necessarily outgrow, because it's based on a revenue model, but certainly if you start to exceed your expectations, it starts to play with the formula of like what's reasonable and what's not. But we've stayed aside because Ludo and Leo, like they've become very close friends, and we had a really good relationship. all of this time, and we've all kind of grown together at Sidewalk, because at the beginning it was literally like us there, and I just, Leo, Ludo, and I. And Shots was the only thing that opened at the time. And then Tech followed, and Sandria. And so we were able to like kind of create this ecosystem all together that became, I mean, now Sidewalk is quite busy, but I'm super happy for them. And we'll stay there permanently because it's kind of our home and there's no point to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. Sidewalk's cool.
Oh yeah. Also for fermentation food.
Yeah, I mean, they always have all these great guest chefs that come by, which I think is really, I think it's super helpful because it keeps it more fresh, keeps it new, keeps it exciting. People don't come back to the same things all the time. I know that we've added things on the menu to sort of differentiate the offering, like just having like new things here and there. We'll do like the bagel pop-ups with our friends at Ghost Days. All these kind of things, just because sometimes you need to you need to not reinvent, but you need to like introduce something that's like different. But also because I'm American, so there's like a million things which sometimes can be memes of food that I create here, whether it's like, I don't know, tater tots and melted cheese. But for me, it's great, and I think people here are actually quite accommodating to allowing me to experiment with like American food and yeah, I mean, especially at this place, I mean, we have like spaghetti and meatballs on the menu and Alfredo pasta. So that's different. That's super different.
Yeah. What do you think Italians think about Italo-American cuisine?
Yeah, I think it's a really valid question. I don't think, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know. Right now, we're selling mostly the burger. We have a lot of pasta. It's not at the forefront of everyone's minds when they're coming into a Chuck's, for sure. But I think that's the point, because I don't think we've like really been part of this trend of smash burgers in Milan. At least I don't really consider us to be part of that conversation. Only because like I'm actually doing something that I like completely and utterly identify with, and that I ate when I was like a really small child in Ohio, when I would visit my grandparents. Whereas I don't know that dialogue comes on for everyone else. Like maybe you went to New York, which it's not even the home of a smash burger. So the narrative even there is really misconstrued because it's actually irrelevant. It doesn't exist there at all. There are places that it's the same as putting like burgers in New York and they opened the smash burger shop. But the originals in like the Midwest are like super fascinating. And I think the point of all that is here I'm able to like just keep cooking what I want to cook. No, it's like, I think the identity of like Italian American cuisine, it was all created by Italians. I mean, they all emigrated to the United States. Panarette alla vodka existed in Italy in the 80s. Alfredo, there's a really great Alfredo restaurant in Rome that still exists to this day. And spaghetti and meatballs, it's just spaghetti and porchetta, So it's like, what's the difference? Like, there's really not, it's just it's the person that's cooking it. And that's the difference. But if you can make that argument, you could say the same about everybody making a hamburger in Italy, because then it's the exact same argument. So no, I think people will come around, and to be fair, it's really good. And so I think we should be more open about taste than we should be about authenticity, in the sense of like, you have to be in this way specifically to like make this thing. Because I think when people come back to me, America's fusion, like all of it. The entire ecosystem of American cuisine is fusion. So we're eating these things when we're growing up. You can have, my dad is baked chicken Alfredo all the time.
And since you opened the smash burger brand becomes really popular in Italy, now it's beginning to be more common. And do you think it's just a trend having so many smash burgers here, or
yeah, like have longevity? Good question. I think, I mean, this is my own opinion, but I think a lot of people are opening smash shops in Milan, like right now, extremely late to the game, by the way, extremely late.
yeah?
Because they see what I've done, for sure. I think they've seen like what Dumbo has done in Paris. I think they saw what Burgess was and what was possible at scale, which I think is also a reasonable approach to opening a business when you do your due diligence. So I think a lot of these things happen because people have money and they want to open a concept. I don't think it's by accident that all of these places look exactly alike. I mean, I don't want to eat a burger at a spaceship. It's not interesting to me. It's cold. If you go to the States, you're not gonna go to a burger shop that's full of aluminum, like at all. Like what is this is not an aesthetic. It's aluminum. So I think there's a lot of struggles with like this trend idea, and I think in Milan there's just a lot of trends, and people really latch on to these trends, like regardless of uh where anything is coming from. No, like I think it's like really built in to just go to the next new place, and that's an extremely dangerous place to be in the restaurant industry. So while I'm happy people are opening businesses and I completely love entrepreneurship because that's like a huge part of my culture. I think you can also like impact an industry in a really negative way by just putting up things all over the place to make a buck, because that's certainly not our point. We just want to cool.
Yes. Another interesting thing is your philosophy about no modifications. So no one can change a Chuck's burger because actually it isn't a Chuck's burger anymore.
Sure.
If you change some ingredients. And it's all about cuisine philosophy, or is also related to business sustainability?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all falls into one place for me, and it's a bit two-pronged. It's the fact that it's not the same the moment you start reducing everything that's on it. And the second part is actually about efficiency, which is kind of the thing we touched on earlier about something I had gained from New York operationally. And that's because when you have such a, especially the way that we operate, we have very small kitchens. Like all of our kitchens are 17 meters or less. So it's very tight. So the moment you allow someone to edit, everybody begins to edit. And you get very lost very quickly in your orders about who didn't want what. And to alleviate any stress and also to ensure like customer satisfaction, it was a lot easier to say, this is the product. And I also prefer it because that's how I prefer to eat it. And I think if you want to like modify something, you're more than, there's a lot of burger shops now in Milan. You're more than welcome to go somewhere else if you can't eat cheese or pickles or whatever it is. But it's not like it's not a burger. You know what I mean? Like I just don't get why. Like who doesn't eat pickles anyway? Like pickles are like amazing. So I think it's become something that actually in the beginning everybody told me not to do it because it would be really difficult. But in the end, I think people really adopted it, and then they just take the stuff off anyway, which tends to be unfortunate. But I mean, people put ketchup on it. I've like for me, it's like mortifying, but I tend to just leave it alone after they're gone. Back to the window.
Yeah. And what about also other brands, for example, gourmet sandwiches? Is there something like a business advantage in making smash burger instead of a gourmet sandwich? From a business point of view, what do you think?
Sure. Yeah, I think completely. I think when you're making gourmet sandwiches, your mise en place is huge. You have so much stuff on like a mise en place. We have like 4 things. We have onions, pickles, the sauce, and the cheese. And then you just have your patties in the drawers and the buns, no? Like it's very straight. And so what this does also efficient, like operationally, is that it reduces your amount of suppliers. Like we manage 3. And so it's so simple in this sense. But on the other end of that, it's also, I think it's just management. Like, I think it comes with experience to like run a kitchen, run a business. So I think it becomes less complex, regardless if you're doing full cut sandwich shops or you're doing a burger shop. I mean, pizza guys do it really well, no? Like, they have tons of stuff because they have so many toppings. So I think from a cost perspective, pizza wins because it's flour, water.
Nice.
But from a sandwich perspective, we're gonna put burgers into the sandwich category. I would say like smashed, or which is probably like the most efficient concept operationally. Also because it doesn't require a lot of labor unless you're busy. Then one requires a bit. You have to find a way to manage your schedules, especially if you're open 7 days a week. It's a really different thing. So yeah, I think there's like little ins and outs about each business.
Yeah.
But I also think it's the smash, this thing that exists now that we've all, that's become like this trend. is certainly also so appealing because the barriers of entry there aren't any for basically anyone can open a restaurant. And so it's more of just getting in line, and if you can operate it well and you at least know business, you have some sort of expertise, then I think like this is why you see a lot of people opening. And good for that. Like at the end of the day, we're all just like sharing a pie, so here we are.
And only just from here, from the shops opening, you started this kind of shops for branding other European cities.
Yeah.
Paris, Milan, Rome, I think.
Yeah.
And what are the main differences that you can see in the different markets? What are the differences in customers' habits in relative to Swiss?
Yeah, I think I'll speak for London just because now I'm doing a bit more work there, like more often, and which I really, really appears to London for me was like always the holy grail. And the guys at Carousel were always super open to having me there, and then we finally have a relationship and open the space at their place. I think London is like super open. Maybe people in London would disagree. I don't really see them as following like this mass trend situation that we kind of find here existing. In Paris also, like of course Dumbo does quite well. They opened in London also, and I think they're doing really well there. But it's also because there's not so many smash burger shops like in these places. Like in Dumbo, I couldn't name more than a handful, and also London. So it's also really interesting because in Milan there's like a lot. There's a lot in Italy. I see them in like tiny towns now, like Pavese or something.
Oh, yeah.
So I think differentiation is like really customers, customer habits in terms of spend. Milan is actually interesting because people here, they tend to spend quite a bit. Like there doesn't really like, they're not afraid of like ticket value at the end of the day. In Paris, because we were doing a residency at a hotel, so I think the optics are really different. So I can't really speak so much to it because the majority of people there are the guests of the hotel. Rome, tricky. And I say it's tricky because one, we're in Salario Trieste, which is like Luis University. And two, the customer's totally different. It's just a completely different game. We have great customers, but it's a really different game. And I think Milan is just more, more savvy in this. Maybe let's say like more savvy with TikTok. That's a nice way to put it. They're just more savvy with like social media. I think they just like really have a pool to these things. Like you have a lot more bloggers who live in Milan doing this sort of thing. I think. I mean, I'm not looking at the Roman side of social media so much. But also I think in Rome, it's just such a classic city. I don't know. So maybe you don't want to eat these kinds of things. Like, and so I think people go to more. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have the tourism there, right? Which I think is either good or bad. I'm not sure. I think most of them are Americans. So, they're misfits sometimes. And they're in the way that they dine because ultimately they just want to eat Italian, of course. So I think dining habits, like across the board, at least from a burger shop perspective, it's almost hard as a social experiment to like find that. Because I think with this restaurant now, we're kind of able to have a clearer idea of what that looks like, just because there's a much larger like democratic offering than any of the other shops that have like one or two items on the menu. So that's my idea around that. Yeah.
And you made so many new openings in a record time. What's the secret to not make the brands seem like soulless?
This is a great question. So I think the key point of any of the growth that we've experienced up till now is the team. So shout out to my team because without them, I'm not able to do my job. And the second thing I would say is it's just the premise of like opening restaurants is a personal process, I think, if you're having a conversation with yourself, which is what I'm doing every time. And I think the reason for our growth, aside from like all of the effort inside, is because I experiment. Like when we're in London, like when we were in Carousel, before we ever actually opened in Carousel, I went there and did my guest chef. And I've done a lot of guest chefs, but not just cooking a burger. And I think that's the differentiation between what I do. And I think smash burger concept, which is why I have such I'm like befuddled with being in that category. It's because I cook for a living, or I did. I don't cook as much anymore, but like here I developed all of the menu. I'm not in the kitchen anymore, but everything here, we worked in the kitchen in the beginning. It's because I can get in the kitchen and change. Like, that's the reality, If the burger trend dies tomorrow, okay. So what? Like, for everyone else, there's a real inability to, like, pivot from that. But we already proved that we can pivot. And that's actually why I was in this place in the end. Was I didn't want to just be a burger shop, because I don't think it's necessary to continue doing the same things. And the people that I admire are always opening different concepts. And I think now we're going to get completely away. I don't think there'll be another burger shop. Maybe in Amsterdam, I think will be the last one in Europe. But everything is like way more focused on doing, like, let's go back to cooking, just because it's not something people just copy paste at this stage. No, it's not just perfect.
Okay. So we almost finished.
Sure.
That's the last question
Yeah.
about your next steps in life and this.
Sure. Next steps. I would like to go back home to Amsterdam because I miss it very much. I would like to do projects in Amsterdam just because I think it's an interesting market, actually. Like, the coffee scene there is actually really incredible. And there's a guy who has a great restaurant group doing like really nice things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to do something interesting from an American perspective, obviously. And then after that, I don't know. I'm on another. I have 2 years left on my visa, and I'm not sure. I'm getting a little homesick, so I might go back to the U.S. and start over again in with the rest of us. Yeah, and then run for governor. That's the. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah. No, thanks a lot. Super pleasure. Thanks for coming to the new restaurant.